Greetings. This is Lama Tantrapa. Welcome to the webinar dedicated to exploring the principles underlying Tai Chi and Qigong practices, as well as the practices of many other related disciplines. Today, we are going to not only explore these principles, we'll also learn how to test them, as well as discuss another very important subject for anybody who studies these arts. And this is the subject of Qigong state. Obviously, if you practice Qigong without being in the Qigong state, it's just doing calisthenics. Calisthenics may be good for you, but it's not necessarily a bona fide practice of energy arts. Why? Because Qigong state, by definition, is the state of consciousness in which you can perceive the flow of Qi and be in the flow. So we will discuss how to get into Qigong state, and I will share with you some amazing opportunities at the end of this webinar. So please stay put. Now, before we get the webinar rolling, I invite you to type in the chat box where you're from. We have well over 100 people registered for this webinar, and they come from all over the world. So I would love to know where you live, and also feel free to share any challenges that you experience with your practice of Tai Chi or Qigong. We will address the questions at the end of our webinar as well. We'll have a brief Q&A part of the webinar where I will answer most of the questions, maybe all of the questions that come up today. So without any further ado, let me give you a little bit of a background about myself, just in case you don't know who I am. Obviously, you signed up for my webinar, so you trusted enough that what I have to offer is of high value. My name is Lama Tantrapa. I'm the lineage holder of Qidao, which is the traditional system of energy arts from Tibet via Russia and Ukraine. I was born and raised in the former Soviet Union, and learned from my grandfather and from several other great masters who were practicing the energy arts, martial arts, meditation, and other similar disciplines during the communist regime. So believe it or not, it was against the law to practice any of these disciplines. And of course, if you were to go in the park and do some Tai Chi forms, you would get arrested and thrown in jail. If you come from Siberia, you probably would not be sent back home, so they would get rid of you in some other way. Now, it's something that may not be as severe happening in China now, but still there is a lot of crackdown on Qigong in China. You've probably heard of Falun Gong. I don't know how well Falun Gong fits into the definition of Qigong, but many different practices that are associated with energy arts would benefit from knowing the principles that underlie most of these practices. And this is what I focus on. This is what the practice of Qidao is all about. It's about walking the talk by understanding the principles and embodying the awareness of energy. How do we know that we embody energy awareness? Well, we have to test it. So we also have a methodology for testing our experiences and how well we embody these principles. One of the most popular things that people come to study when they first show up on my doorstep in my studio, or when they sign up for my long distance programs, they say, I would like to be more grounded. And of course I ask them, well, what does it mean? How would you know that you're more grounded? What would it feel like to be more grounded? Well, more grounded for different people may mean different things. For some people, being more grounded means simply being a little bit less agitated or stressed out. For some people, it may mean feeling a little bit more energy in their body. For some people, it may feel like they energetically connect with Mother Earth. Being grounded is a wonderful thing. And it is really about the energetic connection with Earth. It's also about using the element of Earth in the physical body of a human being. What represents the element of Earth in your body? Most of the human body is made of water. 75–80% is made of mostly fluids. Most of the tissues, muscles, internal organs, blood are by and large fluids and some proteins. However, there is the physical representation of the element of earth inside of our bodies. It's called skeleton. It is what keeps us from getting squashed by gravity, which is the other aspect of the element of earth energy. The gravity force pulls us down, and if we didn't have any bones, we would get squashed like a jellyfish on the beach. But because we have bone structure, we have skeleton, we can align our skeleton in a way that keeps us upright, which is preferable. If you're not upright, then the bone structure of your body isn't really supporting you from falling over. If you're not falling over, something else is supporting you. What would that be? Well, that would be your muscles. It means you are using the muscles to hold you from falling over instead of using the bones. How different is it to use muscles as opposed to using bones? Well, if you think about it, bones are always stronger than muscles, and they perform their function of support without any work. They don't really have to struggle or use energy. Muscles, on the other hand, have to use a lot of energy when they are doing that which bones do effortlessly. Muscles also get tired and eventually get sore. Eventually, they start causing you pain if they're overworked and underpaid, so to speak. They also create energy blockages, which both limit your range of motion and availability to the flow of life. It also wreaks havoc in your internal energy flow, because energy has a hard time flowing through the areas of tension in the body. And this is what happens in the lower legs when we are not grounded. When there is tension in the lower legs, in calves, in shins, in the medial or lateral aspects of the lower legs, there is an obstruction to the energy flow. And what happens is that we become disconnected from earth that we stand on. Let me demonstrate. I can misalign my leg one way or another, and if I roll my foot inwards or outwards, pronation and supination cause imbalance, and the muscles have to compensate for the lack of structural integrity of the leg. If I bring too much weight onto the toes or the ball of the foot, there is tension in the knee, and obviously there is also tension in the calf, because the weight is too much forward. If I bring too much weight onto the heel, there is tension in the shin, the muscles in the front of the lower leg, which obviously also creates impediment to the flow of qi. It doesn't matter which part of the leg I have to tense up in order to compensate for a lack of structural integrity and alignment. That will create an impediment to the flow of qi. It will create the energy blockage, which will prevent me from being grounded. Now, what's the solution? Well, the solution is relatively simple. Finding a way to distribute weight on the bone structure of your lower leg so that you can rest the muscles. Now, how do you do that? You may be familiar with the center of the sole of the foot point called yang chuan. Now, notice how I'm standing on one foot, and I'm not falling over easily. I can stand like this for as long as I want. How do I do that? Because I distribute the weight on that point in the middle of the foot. I can stand like this. I can do all kinds of kicks, all kinds of pirouettes. I actually worked with 2 world champions in ice skating. They were both twice champions of the world. And they still learn something about balance. You would think that people who are world-class athletes in this sport, that's all about balancing on this thin blade of metal that you skate on, would know something about balance. Well, sure enough, they knew a great deal about balance before they started studying with me. But there was something that they discovered for themselves that really improved their stability even more. I'll share with you in just a few minutes about that. First, let's just take a look at how you can make yourself more stable by simply distributing weight on the center of the foot. If you're standing on one foot, obviously, if you distribute weight on the center, you will have maximum stability because you won't be wobbly. If you distribute weight on the toes or on the heel, you are likely to fall over, forward or backwards. If you have too much weight on the lateral side of the foot, you're likely to fall over one side. If you have too much weight on the medial side of the foot, you're probably going to fall over the other side. If you distribute weight on the center of the foot, guess what's going to happen? You are going to be stable, balanced. And you will distribute the weight of your body down the bone structure of your leg. So the bones will actually work instead of the muscles. And as we already know, bones don't burn energy. They don't need to tense up. So muscles can relax. And that's what allows the flow of qi to flow without an impediment between your body and the ground you stand on. Now, if you're not standing on one foot, if you're actually standing on 2 feet, as most standing meditation practices entail, you basically stand on 2 feet. The question is, how do you distribute weight on these feet? We can talk about positioning of the feet, whether or not the toes need to be parallel to each other or rotated in any angle. What's the distance would be ideal between the feet? That's a different story. Let's just take a look at how you distribute weight onto the soles of your feet. This is what I call the suction cup imagery. Imagine that the feet are like suction cups. I use this visualization all the time, especially with the students who are learning how to be grounded. Imagine the center of the suction cup. Basically, because of its concave shape, it may not even touch the surface that you want it to stick to. But that's where the connection is established, because that's where the vacuum is created when you push onto the suction cup and then release. If you don't push onto the center of the suction cup, however, if you push on the side of the suction cup, it won't stick so well, will it? And it doesn't matter which side of the suction cup you push on, it won't work so well. But if you press on the center of the suction cup, you literally engage the point in the middle of the suction cup that doesn't even have to physically touch the surface. Similarly, the shape of the sole of the foot is such that due to the arch of the foot, the center of the foot may not even touch the ground physically. It doesn't really matter, because what does matter is whether or not you distribute weight on that center of the foot. If you distribute weight elsewhere, then it doesn't matter whether it's on the toes or in the heel, one side of the foot or the other, it will create imbalance. However, if you distribute weight onto the center of the foot, then all you need to do is to simply remember how to stay in balance. Like surfing. If you are not balanced on your surfboard, then you're basically going to lose balance in no time. But if you are balanced, then you start exploring dynamic balance. Obviously, the surfboard is moving under your feet. All you need to do is to maintain the awareness how connected you are to that surfboard. Exact same principle applies. If you distribute weight on the centers of your feet, you will have that balance. If you distribute your weight elsewhere, forget about it. You're going to be swimming. And what also happens is that you can develop the ability to be grounded no matter where you go. It doesn't have to be just during the standing meditation in Qigong or Tai Chi. It can be when you're standing in the queue at the bank, or when you're waiting for a bus on the bus stop, or you are at the register at the food store. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Right now, I'm talking to you standing on my feet, by the way. I don't like sitting when doing webinars. I prefer to stand. It also gives me an ability to speak more clearly, because if I sit, I bend at 90 degrees angle, well, that's not going to project my voice very well. What also happens is that I maintain this level of stability we're talking about by distributing weight on the centers of the soles of my feet. And that's exactly what we call being grounded. Now, how do you know that you are actually grounded? Well, you can ask somebody to push you over. And if you get easily pushed over, well, then you are not very grounded. However, if somebody is pushing you and you just keep reminding yourself to keep the weight on the centers of the feet, and as the pressure is applied, You're still keeping the center of the feet as the epicenter of your center of mass. And no matter how much pressure is applied, you just stay grounded. Guess what happens? You don't fall. This is obviously not the only principle that I wanted to cover today, but just this one will radically change your relationship with Mother Earth. You will actually develop the ability to energetically connect with the planet you live on and have the energy exchange between your body and the element of Earth, the big energy ball that we live on called planet Earth. And we can connect with this planet energetically. And having this energy exchange empowers your body tremendously and also allows you to let go of any energies you no longer need so that Mother Earth can recycle them and make them available for further use again. As a matter of fact, I have a wonderful meditation about exactly this practice in my meditation CD called Dao Initiation. You can find it on my website, web store. There is also a practice of pushing that we use to test each other. The person who is projecting the energy also needs to maintain the awareness of a certain energy principle, and that's the principle of rooting. Look at the back heel of my foot that's behind me. If I lift the heel off the floor, it immediately uproots me. And this is exactly what a lot of people do when they push. They have tendency to lift their back heel off the floor. If you look at the way the boxers box, pretty much 99.9% of boxers in the world, maybe 100%, lift their back heel when they do a cross punch with the arm that's on the same side of the body as the back foot. This is what they do. In many martial artists do the same thing. And most people, when they try to project energy forward, have tendency to lift their back heel. Well, guess what? They uproot themselves. Why do they do that? Because nobody teaches how to keep the back heel on the ground. Maybe there are some teachers who do that, but apparently there aren't enough of them. We need more teachers who would be able to teach about this principle of rooting. Those of you who live in Australia and New Zealand, forgive me for using this term. I know that means a different thing down under. So what we do is we learn how to keep the back heel on the ground. Why? Because if you lift it, something terrible happens. The connection between your torso and the ground is no longer a solid bone connection, as in the situation where the heel is on the ground. Instead, as soon as the heel comes up, the calf muscles tense up. And muscles are never as strong as bones. Plus, we already know they create an impediment to the flow of qi. And that also means that you are not really supported back there. So if you push against something, you don't have the solid structure supporting you behind you. So nobody has your back, so to speak. And what happens when you bring the heel down, that heel immediately provides you the necessary support. But why do people do this? Well, I think there are two reasons. Number one reason is they try to reach too far away from them. So, in other words, boxers, for example, when they box, they try to reach their opponent with their hand. When they do that, they shift the weight onto the front leg, and the length of the legs is usually the same. The right, left. What happens is that the length of the front leg is equal to the length of the back leg, but the back leg goes back at an angle, and the length of the leg is not going to be enough to keep the heel on the ground. So they have to lift the heel because otherwise they wouldn't be able to touch the ground with that foot at all. Another reason is they don't bend their front knee. If they bent the front knee, the whole issue would be no longer an issue, because as soon as you bend your front knee, the length of the front leg is not the same as the length of the back leg. You can see how the distance from my hips to the floor is shorter going towards the front foot and greater going towards the back foot. How can I make sure that I can keep the heel of the back foot on the ground by simply bending the front knee. I don't want to bend it too much, so I want to maintain the principle of grounding still. I want to distribute the center of mass on the center of the front foot so that I stay grounded in the front foot and I stay rooted with the back foot. So the back heel is on the ground. It touches the floor and provides me the solid support behind me. How do I know that I've achieved that? Well, try to push something. If you are pushing with force, using momentum, throwing yourself against the object you're trying to push, that means you're not rooted. When you're rooted, you don't need to do that. You just keep the heel on the ground and start falling forward. Literally moving around the pivot point of the back heel. The gravity will do most of the work. As a matter of fact, this is how we learn how to test each other with a push. We develop the type of push that does not use any physical force, only gravity. That means you don't have to use your muscular tension to push. All you need to do is just to stop supporting yourself in front or start bending the knee of the front leg and pivot around the back heel. As long as the heel is on the ground, you will start leaning forward, hinging around the point of contact between the back heel and the floor, and that is going to provide a very consistent type of pressure with your hand because you're not using force. So gravity does all the work and you simply relax. The only effort it takes is however much effort it takes for you to relax the front leg and bend at the knee. This is the principle of rooting. It transforms the way that you project energy forward, but it also can change the way that you project energy backwards or any other direction. Even when you lift something up in air, as long as you're lifting something with your left hand, the left heel is the heel that provides you the root. That heel needs to stay on the ground. You can even plant it into the ground with a little thump, and that will project whatever you're trying to lift way higher than if you just did it with the strength of your shoulders and muscles of the arm. Because you use the power of the whole body, sending a wave through the whole body all the way into your hand. This is what, for example, people do in Russia when they play with kettlebells. They don't just lift the kettlebells with isolated motion of the arm because they wouldn't be able to. The damn thing is too heavy. They have to lift it with the use of the whole body. And this movement requires connecting with the ground through the heel of the same side foot as the hand that's doing the lifting. You can also pull. The same principle would need to apply. The back heel, again, would need to stay on the ground. The same side heel as the pulling arm. So basically, this is the principle of rooting that can be applied when you project energy in any directions. I mentioned to you the world champions in ice skating. One of them was experiencing troubles with landing after doing some amazing pirouettes. I don't know, triple spin in the air. I don't know what they call it nowadays. But when she was landing, she was a little wobbly. Well, of course, she was superb compared to most other ice skaters, but she still wanted to improve upon what she was doing. That's the sign of mastery. You are masterful compared to all other people in your field. You're best in the world. There is still some room for improvement. You don't stop. You don't reach a plateau and just dwell on laurels. You actually continue studying, continue improving. So she found me. And she discovered that the principle of stabilization is what was missing. Let's take a look at the principle of orientation. It's about alignment of the center line of your body with the hand that you're using for primary movement. By definition, primary movement is the movement of the limb that goes in the same direction where the center of mass is moving. An example of a punch, for example, like we're talking about boxers, as long as center of mass is moving forward, the punch will be a primary movement. If the center of mass is not moving forward, or God forbid is moving backwards, now this is not the primary movement, it's secondary or even tertiary. But if you want this movement to have power, obviously you will need to move your center of mass. This is also one of the principles of Tai Chi, called using whole body power. You don't just punch with an isolated arm, you actually punch with the whole body moving in the same direction as the limb that's projecting energy. That also, combined with the principle of sending waves down the arm from the center of the body to the periphery, makes the power of this type of movement tremendous without looking strenuous. And this is also obviously an element of mastery that we can explore in our further programs. What is the principle of orientation? It's about orienting your center line towards the hand or any part of the arm that you may be using. I even teach how to make elbow strikes. And elbow also can get empowered if it's in alignment with the center line of your body. Center line is like a power line of your body. It can make everything stronger if you observe this principle of orientation. If you make an elbow strike this way, for example, in most martial arts, especially it's egregious in mixed martial arts competitions that you can easily see on television nowadays, people do this. Why do they do this? I have no idea. As a matter of fact, this is a terrible way to make an elbow strike. Notice how the opposite hand is preventing the arm to go further so that the elbow would be on the center line. Instead, the hands are on the center line. They don't need to be on the center line because this is not where the energy is needed. The energy is needed at the elbow if you're making an elbow strike. So elbow strikes, by the way, are part of Tai Chi studies. It's one of the main 13 moves. And one of the principles that make elbow strike powerful is the principle of orientation. In this case, we want to orient the center line towards the elbow. Why not bring the elbow to the center line? Because you need to focus on your target. You need to hit the target with your elbow, right? The target is wherever the target is. If you bring the elbow to your center line, but the target is over there, you're going to miss the target. If you want to hit the target with the elbow, you need to direct the elbow towards the target. In order to empower your elbow, now you need to make sure that the center line is oriented towards the elbow. That's why we call it the principle of orientation. It's like you turn your body to square off with your target or wherever your energy is needed. It doesn't always have to be a physical maneuver like an elbow strike or punch. It can be simply listening to the person talking. Even when you're in the situation, for example, in a customer service context. You're providing customer service and perhaps your customer wants to be heard. Well, what's going to work better for you? To turn your center line to focus on the customer or to turn your center line somewhere out the window? What do you think is going to make your customer feel that they're being heard? That's right. Of course, when you turn your center line towards the customer, and it's not where your nose is pointing, it's where your lower dantian or your navel is pointing. So what you need to do is simply remember to orient yourself towards wherever the energy is needed. As they say, where attention goes, energy flows. You provide attention to the customer, you also provide energy. You provide them with sense that they are being heard, they're being empowered. Now, they may also get obnoxious sometimes, and customers sometimes may start getting angry or frustrated. You don't want to be bombarded with their energy in that case. So what do? Move yourself away from their center line. Even just a few inches away, it already will get you out of harm's way. If the person is trying to throw a punch at you, again, the same idea. Their punch will be strongest on their center line and weaker and weaker and weaker as it goes away from center line. And in some martial arts, people do what they call back fist punches. It's just a waste of energy. It may be a distraction. It may be a way to kind of fake a punch and then do something for real. But it's really a wasteful move, if you ask me, especially if you also consider that back of the hand doesn't really have much power. Lagun point, that's where the power is. And the beam of energy comes out of Lagun point perpendicular to the surface of the palm in this direction, not in that direction. So you can push this way a lot easier than you can push that way. If you try to lift something, it's a lot easier to lift this way as opposed to lift that way. If you want to press on something, again, the same principle applies. So if you want to punch something, same story. Your palm strike will always be a lot stronger than the back fist punch. Let's see how we can take a look at the principle of orientation when it applies to something non-martial. For example, you are a massage therapist or a healer of some sort. Your client perhaps is on the table, or maybe sitting on the chair, or even standing in front of you. What would provide maximum energy to your hands as you're doing whatever you do with your hands? Alignment with your center line. If your center line is pointing elsewhere and you try to do something over here, it's not going to be as powerful as compared to doing something over here. The same applies to even benign things like computer. You know how many people came to me with tension in the arm? Usually it's the right arm if they're right-handed, or left arm if they're left-handed, whichever hand they use to operate the mouse. Little computer mouse seems like the most benign thing. However, they end up with a tense shoulder. Sometimes they even have to go through surgery. How do you deal with this tension? You simply stop using the mouse off your center line. That's the reason why people develop what they call mouse arm syndrome. Is because in the front of the body, on center line, there is a keyboard. Where's the mouse? Way off to the side. What do I do? Well, first of all, I use a laptop where the trackpad is right in the center line. And secondly, if I have to use a mouse, I move the mouse pad in the center line. Where does the keyboard go? On the keyboard tray. Most desks have a sliding keyboard tray underneath. That's where a keyboard really belongs. And the mouse pad belongs on the center line on top of the desk in front of you. That will eliminate the issue of tension in the shoulder of the arm that uses the mouse. It's like driving a car. Imagine what it would be like to drive a car with the steering wheel off center line. That would lead to a tremendous number of car accidents, wouldn't it? Well, don't use your mouse off your center line because you're going to wreck your health just as well. I know this is such a simple idea, but it eliminates 99% of issues like mouse arm syndrome, carpal tunnel syndrome, and pain in the neck. Usually is what happens when you sit facing this way, but your head has to turn if your monitor is off center line. This is just such a simple idea that seems like a no-brainer. It's not a secret. People who study anatomy and physiology agree with it. People who study exercise kinesiology agree with it. Of course, people who study ergonomics agree with it. But not everybody knows about it. So I invite you, I implore you to learn more about using your body in a more efficient way. This is an energy principle. So it allows you to focus your energy on whatever you do in front of your body. That also means you're going to be able to provide much better care to people who you're healing if you're a healer, provide much better service if you're in customer service, or let's say if you're a lawyer. It will allow you to become much more precise with what you do on the computer, if you do computer work, even if you are retired. Have you ever had an issue of putting the car keys or some other keys somewhere and not being able to find them for a while? Most people reported to me when I asked that yes, I've had quite a few instances of that kind. Left my car keys somewhere and then I forgot where the heck I put them. You would never forget where you put your car keys or anything you want to remember in your life. If you orient yourself, you turn your center line to orient towards the car keys that you're leaving somewhere, because when you focus your attention on them, you'll be able to remember. There is no way to remember something that you don't pay attention to. And that's exactly what principle of orientation also allows you to accomplish. Suddenly, your memory is back. You're no longer suffering from the issues of wasting time looking for something that you left somewhere and you don't know where it is. Now, how about another principle? The principle of stabilization. If orientation of center line helps empower the arms, the upper limbs, the principle of stabilization applies to the lower limbs. It also allows you to empower the leg that supports your weight as a weight-bearing foot or leg. Now, what is the definition of a weight-bearing leg? It bears more than 50% of your weight. It doesn't matter if it is 51 or 91%. If there is more weight on one leg than the other, that leg needs to be empowered because you're relying on that leg. If you orient your center line towards the knee and the toes of that foot, what's going to happen? You will be much more stable. This is that secret that the ice skating couple learned from me when they were learning how to make it possible to land and be completely superbly stable on the ice skate. It's simply about aligning the center line with the skate. It doesn't matter whether it's a skate or, let's say, a rollerblade. You will be superbly stable as long as your center line is in alignment with the toes and the blade, and also importantly enough with the knee of the same leg. Why? Because if the knee and the toes of the foot are not pointing in the same direction, guess what happens? The bones of the upper leg, lower leg, and your foot are not in one geometrical plane, which means they're not really supporting you very well. They're not in alignment. That means the muscles will have to kick in and start providing you structural support, which bones would normally do without any effort. The muscles will obviously not be able to do it as well as bones can. But when you are jumping and landing as an ice skating, yes, you need to bend your knee. So you absorb the shock of landing with the muscles of the thighs, the quadriceps. It's the largest muscle group in the body, so you might as well use it. And when you do that, you can actually observe the alignment of the knee and the toes, and hopefully that's where the ice skate is also pointing. If your center line is in alignment, you will be balanced. If your center line is pointing somewhere else when you're landing, you will be unbalanced. Simple and elegant principle of stabilization that also can be applied, for example, when you're going up or down the stairs. When you take a step up the stairs, which leg needs more power? Well, obviously the one that's going to propel you up the stairs. That is the stepping leg. The foot that steps on top on the higher stair needs to be in alignment with the center line. Now you have a choice. You can either bring the foot to the center line, or you turn the center line in alignment with that stepping foot. When that happens, you will be balanced. You will be stable. You will not fall and tumble down the stairs. If you're going down the stairs, which leg requires more power? The leg that is where the higher foot is. So the stepping foot doesn't require much power because you're not shifting the weight on it as yet. The foot that is on the higher step is the one that is carrying your weight, and you need to relatively slowly lower your body down the stairs. So again, you don't tumble. How do you make sure that you don't tumble? You observe the principle of stabilization, making sure that the center line is in alignment with that foot that's on the higher step. It may sound like a lot of work observing how your body functions, but guess what? What would you rather do when you're going up or down the stairs? You have something more important to consider? This is something that I invite you to consistently practice, and as you bring these principles into your daily life, you will transform the quality of your life. You will literally empower every step you take on earth. Now, I mentioned 5 principles, and so far I only covered 4, right? Are there any questions that people posted so far?
There was one question about grounding. What about people who are not able to stand?
So if they connect with the ground through some other part of the body than the sole of the feet, again, it's just a matter of learning how to make it so that that part of the body is not tense. So for example, if a person is sitting, how do you make it so that the area that connects your body with the ground is relaxed? Because if it's tense, it will create impediment to the energy flow. So the same principles apply. If you're sitting in the chair, for example, and you're tense, somebody comes over and tries to push you, they will topple you really easily. But if you are sitting relaxed, somebody tries to push you, and you're just relaxed and absorbing and redistributing the pressure. Remember we talked about how the human body is mostly made of water. Well, imagine a balloon filled with water. And then you try to push this balloon as it's sitting on a table or somewhere on the kitchen counter. You push it, it's not going to just roll off the kitchen counter so easily. You can't really push it so easily because as you apply pressure on the balloon, it redistributes this pressure in all the directions, 360 degrees. And it's not just in one plane, it's actually in 3 dimensions. So it just redistributes the pressure everywhere. Remember, water cannot be squeezed. It just redistributes the pressure everywhere. And as it does, you're no longer applying pressure just in one direction, like on a hard object. You are pressing everywhere, which means it mitigates the whole issue of pressure. Similarly, if somebody is pushing you, for example, in the stomach, remember, this is water. If you tense up, you become more rigid, more like earth or wood. But if you are relaxed under pressure, the pressure is coming, and you just allow this pressure to get redistributed through all the internal organs and viscera everywhere. 360 degrees in 3D everywhere. Pressure is coming, and it's not pushing you over. What happens? You are acting like water. Like water, my friend. To paraphrase Bruce Lee, you can think like water also. You can act like water. You can move like water. This is what I call the culture of movement that is based on these principles. I call it harmonious culture movement. You're moving following the principles of energy awareness that we just discussed and some other principles that we haven't discussed yet. And you develop the culture of movement that you can use in every situation in your life. It's not like you just use this when you are doing Tai Chi forms or Qigong practices. You actually use it every little step you take on earth. And when you're standing also. So for example, if I'm standing and I want to reach for the cup of tea, I use my whole body to project energy in one direction. I move with wave-like dynamics. So the center of mass projects the wave in one direction, and then as I get a hold of the tea, I project the wave in the opposite direction. I also don't want to make it too strong of a wave because I will spill the tea. But I certainly make this movement circular and smooth, using the whole body rather than isolating a particular part of the body, relaxing the muscles rather than tensing them up, using gravity to my advantage rather than struggling against it. These are just simple examples of what the culture of movement that I refer to as harmonious culture of movement does. But what's more important is that it also brings your state of consciousness into a different, more harmonious state. It's much easier to function in a harmonious fashion if you are in a harmonious state of consciousness. Obviously, right? If you're in a disharmonious state, for example, you're stressed out or you're angry or you're depressed, you're probably not going to be able to move in this harmonious fashion so easily. That's why people who go to Tai Chi or Qigong classes often have such a hard time learning to move the way that they're supposed to move, because they don't really enter the Qigong state first. I'll talk about Qigong state in just a few minutes. But what's interesting about the methodology that I present in my programs is that we have very easy ways to enter this relaxed and meditative Qigong state of consciousness. This is also something that can be tested and proven. For example, the principle of centering is exactly what allows you to enter this centered or state of equanimity, as they call it. Buddhists often refer to it as the state where you don't have attachment or aversion to anything. You are maintaining presence, but you're not running away from anything, or you're not getting into fight or flight. You also deal with the stress source in a radically different way. So instead of reacting to them, you respond to whatever stressors, whatever issues life may present to you. How do you do that? Well, do it like this. The pressure is coming, let's say push is coming, and you just simply pivot. This is Greg. He is a very experienced Qigong and Tai Chi practitioner for many decades, studying martial and energy arts, and also a dear friend and student of mine. Would you do me a favor and push me? If I resist, you can easily push me over, and that's what we call being reactive. I'm basically acting against the oncoming force. Would you push me again? Instead of reacting, I respond. Notice what I did. Would you do it slowly? I feel. See, I don't assume that I need to turn this way. I check. I feel where the energy is flowing. If the hand is coming at me, I'm not going to just decide, oh, he's going to push me this way, so I need to turn this way. I'm going to feel. When the pressure is coming, I can tell that energy is going to this side of my center line. It's really about that. Which side is energy going to flow? To the right or to the left of my center line? Statistically speaking, it's rather improbable that Craig would be able to apply absolutely equal amount of pressure on both my right and my left side of the center line. And even if he manages to accomplish exactly this and applies pressure perfectly on the center line, well, then guess what? I can exercise the freedom of choice. So it's really a no-nonsense way to test how centered you are. When you're centered, you don't take anything personally. So when energy projection is coming at me, I don't resist, I don't react, I relax under pressure and test where the energy is flowing. Is it flowing to the left or to my right of the center line? Whichever direction the energy is flowing, I just pivot in that direction around the axis along the spine. This is also referred to as Tai Chi pull. So when the pressure is coming, for example, I feel, oh, there's more pressure here. I don't lean back, I don't collapse, I don't tense up. I just pivot. Just this. Nothing more, nothing less. I need to remember to pivot around the spine rather than, say, stomach. So when I'm being pushed, I pivot around the spine rather than the stomach. It's like Tibetan prayer wheel. When you apply pressure on the prayer wheel, it will spin off, either to the right or to the left. Which direction is it going to spin in? Whichever direction you apply more pressure on. So as the pressure is coming, there is just a little bit more pressure going this way, fine. That's where we're going to spin. There is no assumption or expectation or premeditated maneuver that I need to do. I just need to feel the flow of energy and be in the flow. Thank you. Now, what happens when you don't really know how to pivot like this? Well, there's a certain exercise. I would refer to it as a centering exercise that allows you to pivot around the center, the Tai Chi pole of your body. It looks like this. Notice how I can pivot on the heel of one foot at a time, dropping the toes of the foot that just turned down. So I don't keep the foot like this, because if I don't drop my toes down, it's very likely that my center of mass will be on top of the back foot. I don't want to be caught on my back foot. You see, English language has wonderful expressions. I want to be caught evenly distributing my weight. Maybe even a little bit more weight on the front foot. Remember the principle of stabilization? This is the foot that's in front of my center line. It will be empowered if my center line is in alignment with this foot. And if I'm being pushed, I will have greater stability. Then I can still pivot. And wherever my center line is going, the toes of that foot are turning. It's like they're tracking my center line, like a radar tracking the flying airplane. And what happens then? I maintain the principle of stabilization until the feet more or less parallel to each other. Then if I continue turning, the other foot starts tracking. So I'm pivoting facing east, and then facing the south, and then facing west. So I'm turning 180 degrees. It's the easiest, or one of the easiest ways to turn all the way 180 degrees from east to west. And notice how I'm pivoting around the spine, not my stomach. What does it mean? It means my spine is the center of rotation. If I pivot it around the stomach, it would look like this. So I would be pivoting around the stomach. Why would I not want to pivot around the stomach? Well, I don't want to be caught on my back foot. And the weight of my body is actually closer to my back, so I want to maintain alignment of my back with this Tai Chi pole. Unless I'm pregnant, I have big beer belly, my weight is closer to the back. Why? Because we know that the skeleton is the densest part of the human body. Where's the skeleton? Well, the spine is also known as the backbone. As the name implies, it's closer to the back, not the front. Where are shoulder blades? In the back. Where's most of the rib cage? In the back. Where's the pelvis? Mostly in the back. So that's where the dense parts of the body are located. That's where the center of mass is, by and large, closer to the back rather than the front. Makes sense, right? So then I simply pivot around my spine, and I also allow my arms to flap around freely, just completely relaxed and limp, so that the hands touch the opposite hips every time I turn to the right or to the left. And the head just moves together with the torso, completely relaxed. Maybe a little bit of torque in the torso, that's fine, as long as this torque does not misalign the spine. So this movement is what we call the centering exercise. What happens with my mind during this movement practice is I bring 100% of my attention to the center around which my body is pivoting. It's like the center of a spinning top. That is where the center of mass is located. If the spinning top is spinning around its axis, it's balanced, it's stable. Similar to that, my physical body also finds greater stability and balance, not only physically, but also emotionally, energetically, and otherwise, when I pivot around this center. I become more centered. And the more attention I give to my center, the more I become aware of it. The more I begin to appreciate being centered. And also, the more centered I become in terms of not taking things personally. Instead of reacting to things when energy is being projected at me, for example, I just simply allow the center to take care of this issue. Instead of resisting or reacting to it, I just simply delegate this issue to the center of my being. It knows much better how to handle it, and I just relax. Then whatever energy projections are coming at me are not going to bother me, are not going to get me stressed out. And even if it is a physical projection, for example, a punch or a push, I still can handle it much easier because I'm not a good target. I'm a really terrible target. I'm too flexible and too mobile to be a good target. Does it make sense? I invite you to experiment with a practice partner to see how Learning this centering exercise and all the other principles that we've covered today will allow you to be not an easy pushover. Somebody is trying to push you, and you will just spin off their energy projection without taking it on and being affected by it. It, of course, applies also to other interactions, not necessarily physical, but emotional, verbal, and other types of interactions. We'll learn how to embody this principle first, because if you can walk the talk, then wherever you go, you maintain that principle of centeredness. So you are constantly reminding yourself to stay centered, to stay in that state of equanimity. Remember we talked about the Qigong state? That's how you get into it. One of the ways to get into the Qigong state is simply by pivoting from side to side, bringing 100% of your attention to your center of your body around which you're pivoting. That's closer to your spine. And simply relaxing your body into this movement. And then you enter the state of consciousness that's very focused, present, alert, and at the same time very relaxed. That relaxation also translates into sending fewer signals of contraction from the central nervous system throughout the body, which means the muscles start relaxing when they don't receive signals of contraction. When the muscles relax, what happens? You feel better. You breathe easier. This is one of the keys to knowing whether or not you enter the Qigong state. After doing the centering exercise for a few minutes, you'll probably notice how your breathing pattern changes, becoming deeper and smoother. You may even start wanting to yawn, which is a natural meditative breath, because when you're yawning, you're allowing your body to take in as much oxygen as it needs, contract the muscles, and then release the tension. Yawning is an important part of another meditation practice I jokingly call yantra yoga. I also refer to it as the lucid daydreaming meditation. It's also part of the meditation CD, Dao Initiation, that I mentioned to you before. You can find it at qigongmasters.com/web store. Now, besides this meditation CD, of course, I also have the whole home study course, and I invite you to check it out on that web store as well. You can also find it at qigongcoaching.com/courses. As a matter of fact, on the top of that web page, qigongcoaching.com/courses, you may see a course that I would like to invite you to attend for just $1. That's right, $1 for the whole first month of this course. Check it out, explore, experience, discover for yourself whether or not this is right for you. For $1, you will receive my coaching. You will receive access to our private Facebook group. You will also receive materials from me that I just mentioned at no charge. That's right. Instead of buying this CD, you will get it for free as a digital download when you sign up for this course. It's called Qigong Coaching Program. Now, this Qigong Coaching Program is 6 months long. If you like it and if you want to continue, there will also be $99 charge per month. 99 bucks for the whole month of coaching when you receive not only coaching from me, but you also participate in the group dynamics of a number of people. We have well over 100 people in this webinar, and I know that many of you already said that were interested in this program. So we'll probably have a number of people participating in this group coaching program that will be able to also provide each other some insights and revelations about the experiences. Also, we can go through questions and answers and provide each other with accountability. So I will invite each and every person in this group to find a practice partner or an accountability partner. If you live in the same area or locale, you can meet up face-to-face. If not, you can meet up by Skype or by Google Hangout and just provide each other with accountability. If not, meet face-to-face or by video call, you can even just send each other an email or text message, checking with each other on a regular basis how the practice is going, how you are dealing with some challenges or obstacles along your way. because this is one of the key reasons why people don't have consistent practice. Having asked thousands of people through all types of surveys and questionnaires throughout the last 15 years or more, what their main challenges are when it comes to the practice of Qigong, Tai Chi, and related disciplines, I hear one and the same issue coming up over and over again: self-discipline. It's just easier to maintain continuous practice if there is somebody who keeps you accountable. It's also a lot more fun if you practice with someone. It's also a lot more effective if you are a member of a group, especially if the group is led by a person who knows what he's doing. And you probably understand that I know a few things about the practice of internal arts, Qigong, Tai Chi, and other disciplines like that. I've been studying that since the age of 6. And so you can probably imagine that there have been a few decades since then. So what I do is I invite you to participate in this program for just $1. If you don't like it, cancel it. I will promise I will not be able to charge you anything if you cancel it. And if you go through the first 3 or 4 months, fine. Still, you will be able to cancel it even then. But if you go through the whole program, something amazing will happen. What's going to happen? You will discover for yourself a totally new level of awareness and mastery in energy arts. This is something that hundreds, if not thousands, of people have already gone through in the context of my certification programs. But those certification programs are a lot more expensive. They're $1,500 for 3 months. So for 6 months, it will be $3,000. Now this program is less than $600, 1/5, 20% of what normally people pay for. It is not going to include my face-to-face one-on-one coaching as certification programs include, but it will include many of the other aspects of the same programs, and it's twice as long. So every second week, every other week, you will be able to participate in teleseminars. You will also be able to share your experiences and receive the feedback from myself, from other Qigong coaches who are helping me, and also from the members of the group in our private Facebook group. And also you will be able to receive the materials that will guide you through this entire practice step by step. Where can you sign up for it? Just go to qigongcoaching.com/courses.
There were a few specific questions, but also answers to your initial question, which was, what are your greatest challenges?
Fantastic.
And you can see here, the first greatest challenge was feeling the Qi moving. How do I feel the Qi moving?
Well, we have the whole practice of empowerment, which is dedicated exactly to this practice, exploring how to feel the movement of Qi. The practice of empowerment is something that the initiation is designed to lead to. So that Qidao initiation CD I mentioned to you, it's actually a preliminary practice before the person receives initiation into the practice of empowerment. I usually provide the opportunity for people to receive the initiation after they've studied with me for a few months. But there is going to be a workshop that I'm going to be leading here in Portland, Oregon on the weekend after 4th of July. So what is it going to be? July 11th, 12th. And during that weekend workshop, I will offer you the initiation into the practice of empowerment. At the end of the workshop, you will receive the practices combined with certain instructions and initiations that will allow you to really feel how the Qi flows in your body and around it, and learn to surrender to this flow. So instead of struggling against the flow, you will learn how to be in the flow. I hope that answered the question. Are there any other questions, Craig?
Would be maybe a very general question, which is, what do I get from Qigong?
That's a great question. What do I get from Qigong? Well, first of all, the feeling of the flow of life force in your body and around it, which makes you feel more alive. there is no life without movement. So you also learn how to move in a way that keeps you more alive, provides you greater access to the flow of qi, and also empowers you in a way that you function throughout your daily life. So you become more balanced, more grounded, more rooted, more oriented, more stabilized, more centered. All these principles we talked about today, and many, many more. Of course, there are specific applications of Qigong that you can also explore when you study with me. Those may include anything from healing, both self-healing as well as working with other people. You can also learn how to meditate and develop energy awareness through meditation practices, both sitting, standing, dynamic meditations, as well as meditations that happen during the night. That's right, I also teach how to develop the level of awareness that allows you to experience meditation practices and other spiritual practices during the time when you're sleeping and dreaming. This is also referred to as dream yoga. And you, of course, develop a sense of awakening. So you not only learn how to awaken in those dreams at night, you can also learn to translate that level of awakening and awareness into your daily life. So you literally learn how to become awake in this big dream that we call our daily life.
And next question I have for you from the group is, what are the best first Qigong moves to learn?
The first Qigong move that I always teach is called taking a natural stance. The natural stance is what happens to your body when you just simply jump and land softly, like this. Once again. Once again. That's right, I'm just hopping. I'm just jumping, not very high, maybe just a few inches above the floor, and landing very softly, absorbing the shock of landing with the quadriceps, with the muscles in my thighs, and also making my torso as aligned as possible so I don't fall over. Now, when the torso is challenged with the extra gravity, notice I'm not tweaking G-force, I'm just challenging my body to land softly and relaxed. It means I delegate the weight of my body to the structure of my skeleton. That literally teaches my body to adopt the most aligned stance, which is what we call natural stance. A lot healthier than any unnatural or artificial or contrived stances that you may find in a variety of different disciplines, where they tell you maybe to turn your toes parallel to each other. Most likely, you will not land with your toes parallel to each other. Why? Because your body will not feel stable. How do I know that the body would not feel stable? Because you can ask anybody to come and push you over, and you will fall over easily if your toes are parallel to each other. However, if you jump and land like this, naturally your toes will have a little bit of an angle between them. The distance between the feet will also be specifically most effective for keeping you from falling over. So it's unique and different from person to person. That's why I don't even say that you should be taking the stance at a certain distance between your feet or have a certain angle between the toes. No. Find out what is natural for you. It may also be subject to change. You may experience the degrees of naturalness. So it's not like a black and white proposition. You're either natural or you're artificial. We just learn how to become more natural, and there's always room for improvement. But you can also test and find out whether or not you've learned this natural stance by simply asking somebody to push you. Like, for example, would you do me a favor, Craig, and just push me with my feet parallel to each other? Let's see if we can point the camera a little bit. So right now my feet are parallel. And would you push me? Great. And now I'm going to jump and land softly, and you push me again. See what happened?
Yeah.
I'm not easily pushed over, and I'm not resisting. I'm just standing here, distributing the weight on the centers of my feet. And that's the beauty of natural stance. You simply learn how to become functional again. And if you become functional when you're standing, well, that's a great first step. Then, of course, you learn how to step, how to walk, how to run. Thank you. And that's something that we will continue exploring through further practices. But this is something that I would recommend as the #1 step.
There are two questions that seem to be somewhat related. Greatest challenge being the time to do all the things I want and to practice and find discipline to organize all my activities.
And this is a great question because it has to do with priorities. Finding the time. Well, we all have the same time, 24 hours per day. So some people find it, some people don't. What's the difference between those people who find time to practice versus those who can find time to practice? Priorities. Those people who prioritize their practice at the higher level of importance to them will find time to practice it. If this is not important to you, you won't find the time however much you try. If you are not sure about your priorities, well, this is something that we'll also be exploring in our coaching program, because our Qigong coaching program actually will take you through the exploration of your values. And often you may find it necessary to reevaluate your values because you might have never done that in your life. This is something that most people never do in their lives, reevaluate their values, or recognize that some values perhaps don't really belong to the top of the list of their priorities. They're just not so important to them. They got these values from their parents or from their teachers or from society, somewhere in the media. They didn't really think about putting these values up on top of their list of values. It just happened by default, maybe when they were a child. So what we do is we learn how to reevaluate our values, making sure that those values that are really important to us will be on top of the list of priorities, and the ones that are not so important, well, they will kind of go down or get demoted out of that list at all. Now, once you have done that, you will have no problem finding time for doing that which is high priority for you, because other things that would have taken you time will be waiting until you've actually accomplished what you set out to accomplish in terms of your high priority values. It's a simple approach, but it's baffling when you realize that 99.9% of humankind does not do anything about it. And so you will be immediately ahead of most people living on Earth when you just reprioritize your values. And you will find that there's a lot more time for those things that are important to you.
Greatest challenge was simply my ego.
The ego. Well, that's exactly what we refer to as the periphery of our being. In other words, instead of being centered and delegating the issues that life presents to us to the center of our being, we take it on with our personality, which is kind of a superficial aspect of our being. And we try to deal with this personality using our efforts, our personal powers. Now, of course, it's not going to be as effective. We will be using a lot of our own energy, our own resources, and often we'll still not be able to achieve as much because we're not delegating it to much greater power than our personal power, that power that resides within our center. It's universal energy flow if you want to look at it this way. You delegate it to the flow of universal chi instead of taking it on personally. How much more energy does the universal power have than you? Infinitely. So instead of trying to do things according to what your ego thinks it needs to be done, you will learn how to delegate it to much greater power than your personal power. And then suddenly you discover that you have a lot more capabilities, because these are not just your capabilities. These are capabilities of much greater being than you didn't even know that you were. What you know about yourself is just the tip of the iceberg as compared to what you don't know about yourself. Pretty much every person in personal development world that I've spoken to wholeheartedly agree with this assertion, that everything that you know about yourself is the tip of the iceberg compared to what you don't know about yourself. Now, what we will learn is how to connect with that deeper part of the iceberg. In order to accomplish that, we need to develop a clear interface between the tip of the iceberg and the rest of the iceberg. And this interface is called awareness. This is what allows that which used to be unknown to become known. Now, this is something that we will definitely continue working on through our program, building greater awareness. Not only energy awareness, which is of course very important, it's also body awareness, also awareness of your mind, it's awareness of your breathing and awareness of movement. We talk about how there is no life without movement. Well, this is crucial if you want to experience your life fully. So definitely the ego will have no chance. I want to thank you for attending our webinar. If you're listening to and watching this webinar and recording, then thank you for registering for it, because I know that at the time of this webinar was such that some people around the world couldn't attend. But at least I made it so that it would be possible for people in North America, as well as Europe, as well as Oceania, down under, to attend this webinar and also ask questions and discover about our upcoming program, and also the workshop coming up in Portland, Oregon in July. By the way, if you attend this workshop, which by itself is $250 if you register by the end of this month, $350 if you register in the month of July. But guess what? If you sign up for the online coaching program that I just mentioned, it will be free. I will just give it to you on the house. You will be welcome to attend this workshop, receive initiation into the practice of empowerment, and I won't charge you anything for this workshop at all. So please go to qigongcoaching.com/courses. You will see on top of that page, there is the Qigong coaching program, which is something that you can give a test for a whole month for just $1. Less than a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, and you will discover what is in it for you. Once you see that this is really what you've been looking for, you will be welcome to continue on for 6 months. You will never be the same. Having gone through this program, you will learn so much about Qigong. You will be leaps and bounds above the crowd of any Qigong school, any Qigong system, because you will not be studying forms. You will be studying the principles that underlie all the systems. And then it doesn't matter whether you study Qigong, Qidao, Tai Chi, or any other martial arts or any healing arts, you'll be able to apply these principles no matter where you go, no matter what you do. Even if you're a lawyer or a dentist, you'll be able to apply these principles just as well. It's not only going to be beneficial for you, it's also going to be beneficial for your entire family. But how important is it to you to empower your life and bring that empowerment into your family, into your community, the whole world? We literally are here to make our world a better place. And so this is something that I'm totally dedicated to, and I hope to see you in our program and work with you to make our world a better place together. Thank you once again. It's been a pleasure to talk to you today, and I look forward to working with you in our program. Until then, namaste.